The Premier League now is just a few days away, and earlier, a couple of weeks ago actually, I did my early Premier League predictions. So now it is time to do my final Premier League predictions. Just like we did in the first video, we are going to be using the tier maker, which you can see on the screen now, and of course we've got Champions League spots, Europa League, you get it, etc. And we're going to be doing each team where they're going to finish in the Premier League. If you guys are interested to see how my opinions have changed, then you can click the little button thing up here somewhere right now to watch my early predictions, or in the playlist and the description. So yeah, without further ado, let's give you guys my updated predictions and let's jump straight into it. Starting off bottom place, we've got Burnley. Now Burnley have actually made some really good signings. Just looking at my list here, we've got, you know, the likes of Dubravka, who's a really good goalkeeper. They've signed Kyle Walker, they've signed Armando Broja, and they are really good signings for a team like Burnley. However, the problem is the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is just way too big, and it's getting bigger and bigger every season. With the other two promoted teams, Leeds and Sunderland, I think their home fans are going to carry them in quite a few games this season, and the Burnley fans at home just don't have that same atmosphere. I think Burnley's really going to struggle. They're definitely one of the yo-yo clubs now, and they're going to finish bottom. Moving on to 19th place, and we have Leeds United. Now, I just want to give a prediction out there. I said the same thing in my early video. I do think Daniel Farke will be sacked by Christmas. There was rumours that he was going to be sacked before the season even started, because Leeds just don't think he's a good enough manager for the Premier League. So I do think he will be sacked pretty early on if they struggle. As I was just saying, Leeds fans at home are very good, so they're going to carry them in a lot of matches this season. But again, the gap is just too big for the Premier League and the Championship. Even though the fans are going to carry them, I just don't think there's enough quality on the pitch. I don't think they've got a goal scorer, and you know, I just can't see where the goals are coming from. So Leeds United, again, are going to go down, and they're more than likely going to come up again next season anyway. Moving on to 18th place, and I've actually changed my prediction here. I've gone for Brentford. First of all, Brentford have made some decent signings. Of course, I've got Jordan Henderson, and they've signed Kelleher from Liverpool, who's a really good goalkeeper. But in terms of outgoings for Brentford, there's just too many. Of course, Thomas Frank left, who is an absolutely unbelievable manager. I think he's going to do a really good job at Spurs. But the problem is their new manager isn't really even a manager. First of all, he got rejected a few months ago at MK Dons, and he's only a set-piece coach, really. That's what he was at Brentford before he got the job. And most of you will probably know he's actually just a Sky Sports News pundit. Of course, their main loss is Brian Mbeumo, who was unbelievable last season. And if Wissa leaves as well, I think they're really in trouble, and they could finish even lower than this. But yeah, I do think Brentford, their stay in the Premier League will be over, and they're going to get relegated. Moving on to 17th place, just surviving relegation, I've gone with Sunderland. Again, like I was saying earlier, going to Sunderland myself at their ground, the home fans are absolutely unbelievable, and they will carry them this season. Sunderland have made an enormous amount of signings. They've spent a lot of money, but the two I really want to stand out on are Granit Xhaka. He is an unbelievable amount of experience that will be added into that team, and Simon Adingra from Brighton, actually, yeah. They've also signed, I'm going to butcher this name, I think his name is Mark Guéhi, or however you pronounce it, on loan from Chelsea, who's an exciting young striker. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does now he's actually getting proper game time. Overall, I think Sunderland will be the only team out the bottom three to stay up. They've made some really good signings and spent their money well, and I think they're going to stay up. Moving on to 16th place, and I've gone for Wolverhampton Wanderers. First of all, let's just state the obvious. Cunha and Ait-Nouri leaving are massive losses for Wolves. They have made Strand Larsen a permanent deal, and they have also signed John Arias, who looked very, very good in the Club World Cup, so it's going to be exciting to see how he does. But neither of those really are replaces for Cunha or Ait-Nouri. The Wolves manager did a really good job when he took over last season, but I do think they're going to struggle this season. But they should have enough to stay up. Moving on to 15th place, and I've gone with West Ham, and I actually had them to be relegated in the early prediction videos, so I've changed this one quite a bit. Now, West Ham did let quite a few players go. I know Kufau and Zuma, along with loads of others, have left West Ham, but they have signed Kyle Walker-Peters and Jean-Claire Todibo, who are two great defenders. Callum Wilson is an okay signing for West Ham. He's not going to get that many goals, but Mohamed Kudus is a very, very big loss for West Ham, and they need to replace him. Cooper didn't really do that well last season when he joined West Ham. I'm not sure he is the answer to West Ham's problems, so it's going to be interesting, but I don't think they're going to be near the bottom. Moving on to 14th place, and I've gone with Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth haven't signed that many players. They have signed Petrovic, which is a really good goalkeeper. I think it'll be a good addition for them. But Bournemouth's problem is they've lost a lot of defenders. Of course, they lost Kirkes, they lost Dean Huijsen, and of course now they've lost Zabani, who has gone to PSG. I do think Iraola's done a really good job at Bournemouth, and they're going to be nowhere near the bottom, but they have lost some really big players at the back, so they might concede a lot of goals this season. They're definitely not a threat for relegation, but they're not going to be anywhere near the Europa League places this season at all. Moving on to 13th place, and I've gone with Everton. Now, David Moyes done an absolutely unbelievable job when he took over Everton again last season. Of course, Everton have now got a new stadium to look forward to, and this can go one of two ways, similar to West Ham. They have recently signed Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who I think is a really good signing for Everton. I think he'll do well there. And of course, they have also signed Tierno Barry, who I think is finally the solution to Everton's problems, where they just haven't had a decent goal scorer for years. And of course, they are heavily linked with Jack Grealish. Now, this one is a very good signing for Everton, and it might be a good signing for Grealish. It might be something that he needs to put his career back on track. Of course, it's only a loan move, but I think it will work for Everton if they let him be the standout player like he was at Villa. If Everton don't put him on the wing and just put him in the middle and say to him, listen, just free roam, do whatever you want, just make us win, I think it'll be a good signing for them. I think David Moyes is going to do really good at Everton again this season. They're going to be in no relegation battle at all, easily mid-table. Moving on to 12th place, and we've got Fulham. Now, Fulham actually haven't made any signings at all, and that's weird because they do need a goal scorer. Raul Jimenez just can't cut it anymore. Fulham always are around that mid-table section, and that's exactly where they're going to be again this season. They're just one of those teams that every season, they're too good for a relegation battle, but they're not good enough for a Europa League push, so they're going to be in mid-table again. Moving on to 11th place, and we've got Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace are going to come into this season full of confidence after an FA Cup win and, of course, the Community Shield win against Liverpool. First of all, Oli Glasner is an absolutely unbelievable manager. He's done a very good job there. And it looks like Eze is staying, which for Palace fans is going to feel like a new signing. Crystal Palace also haven't made any real signings, but they are in the Europa League, and I think that will make them... No, sorry, that was really horrible. They're in the Conference League, and I do think that will make them drop a little bit. Like Fulham, they're always around that mid-table section, and that's exactly where they're going to be this season as well. Moving on to 10th place, and we have Brighton. First of all, let's state the obvious. João Pedro is a very big loss for Brighton. They've also lost Simon Adingra, who we spoke about earlier, going to Sunderland. And to be honest, I just can't see where the goals are going to come from for Brighton. I do really rate Mitoma, and I do think Welbeck had a good season last season, but he's not going to play every game, so you need someone who's going to score goals for you, basically. They're not going to be in a relegation battle at all. They're definitely not going to be pushing for Europe though either. So again, they're just a mid-table team. Moving on to 9th place, and I've gone for Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest are finally back in Europe, but that will drag them down the table. Danilo is a big loss for Forest, but of course the bigger loss is Anthony Elanga. And when you lose a player like Anthony Elanga, you need to replace him straight away. Now, Dan Ndoye, who they have signed from Bologna for 35 million, is that replacement. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can replace Elanga and to see how it does in the Premier League. Of course, Forest have also kept Morgan Gibbs-White in a really weird way. You know, that video looked like he was being held hostage, but that's going to feel like a new signing as well. I don't think they're going to push for Europe again this season. I think their squad depth isn't enough for being in Europe and the Premier League at the same time. I think they're going to finish in mid-table. Moving on to 8th place, and I'll go with Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa have surprisingly not made any real big losses. Of course, Watkins is still there, and Emi Martinez. However, as of recording this video as well, they haven't really made any big signings. The reason why I've put Villa this low compared to last season and, you know, the other few seasons that they've been in the Premier League now is I think they're going to put all their eggs in the Europa League basket. They should have won the Conference League a few seasons ago. They weren't going to win the Champions League last season, but they did a really good job in there, to be fair. But now I think they're just going to really try hard to win the Europa League. And of course, when you focus on the Europa League, playing Thursday, Sunday, it's going to make your Premier League form drop off. I think Villa will go far in the Europa League. They may even win it, which I hope not, being a Birmingham fan. But it does mean they're not going to qualify for Europe, at least in my opinion anyway. Moving on to 7th place, and we have got Newcastle. And this all depends on the situation with Alexander Isak. Of course, he really wants to leave, so the problem is now, are you going to get the best out of him because his head's not there and he wants to move on? They haven't really lost anyone important yet. Anthony Elanga is a great signing for Newcastle, but they've missed out on so many transfer targets. You know, the likes of Benjamin Sesko and João Pedro would have been unbelievable signings for Newcastle, but they just couldn't get it over the line. They are in the Champions League again, and I do think that will make them drop down. They're not going to finish in the top 4 this season. But again, this all depends on Isaac. If he does leave, they're going to drop down the table massively. Moving on to 6th place, and I've gone for Spurs. First of all, of course, new manager, Thomas Frank. We spoke about him a little bit earlier. I really do think he's a good manager. I think he's going to do a very, very good job here. And, you know, the way he plays compared to Ange Postecoglou, Spurs are going to be a lot better at the back this season. They have only made a couple of signings, but Mohamed Kudus and João Palhinha are 2 massive signings that are going to help this squad achieve a high position on the table. Of course, they are also in the Champions League as well. I don't think they're good enough yet, unless they sign a few more players to compete in that. And of course, when you are in that, it's going to make you drop down the league. So they're not going to finish top 4. They are miles off that. But they should have a much better season under Thomas Frank. Moving on to 5th, and I've got Manchester United. Now, of course, they've lost Rashford, but I don't think that's a big loss. I personally don't think he's going to play again for Man United anyway. But they have made some really good signings. Of course, they've signed Bremo, Cunha, and now Benjamin Seska. They do really want Donnarumma. I'm not too sure what's happening with that one. I don't think it's going to get completed. I don't think they're going to be able to sign him. But if they do, that was a very, very good signing as well. I think they are going to be much better than last season. You know, it's Amorim's first full season. So they're going to be a lot better. But they're still a massive way off the top 4. Moving on to the top 4. And in 4th place, we have Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are going to be full of confidence after winning the Club World Cup. But I still think they are a long, long way off Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City. And the reason I think they're too far off those 3 teams is because I think they are so inconsistent. Madueke is the only real loss for Chelsea, but they have done more than replace him. Of course, they've signed Liam Delap, they've signed João Pedro, and they've signed Gittins, who are 3 really excited signings. The problem with Chelsea is, again, like last season, I just think there's going to be too many problems at the back, and that's what's going to stop them from getting the top 3 positions. And like I said, I just don't think they are quite at that level yet. Moving on to 3rd place, and I've gone with Manchester City. Now, this is Pep's final year, and he may win a cup, but I just can't see him winning the Premier League. Of course, they've lost De Bruyne, who was an unbelievable player for Manchester City. He was easily the Premier League's best ever midfielder. They have re-signed James Trafford, who is more than likely going to be number 1 choice this season. You know, there are rumours that Ederson is going to Saudi Arabia. And of course, they've also made 3 other great signings with Cherki, Reinders and Ait Nouri. I just think Arsenal have made some good signings, and Liverpool are just going to be unstoppable. Again, they've made some really good signings. I just think it's not going to be a fairy tale ending for Pep. There's going to be no Premier League in his final season, and they're going to finish 3rd again. Moving on to 2nd place, and we have Arsenal. Now, of course, Arsenal have lost Jorginho and Thomas Partey, which I'm sure is a very, very big loss. But they have replaced him with Norgard, who I really think is a good player, who's unbelievable at Brentford, and Zubimendi. They are 2 really, really good signings, and of course they've signed Madueke as well, which is a good player. I rate him on his day. And after all the years of begging for it, Arsenal finally have a good striker with Gyökeres. He's going to have an unbelievable season. I can easily see him getting 15 plus goals. However, I just still think they are so far off Liverpool, and it would not surprise me finishing 2nd again if Arteta leaves at the end of the season. And of course, winning the Premier League again is Liverpool. Of course, Liverpool lost Trent, and that kind of, I don't know, that was kind of a horrible way for things to end. But they have signed some really good players this season. Frimpong is an absolutely unbelievable signing. He looks so good against Crystal Palace, and they've also signed Kirkes on the other side of the defence. Liverpool now quite easily have the best defence in the league. Of course, they've lost Darwin Núñez, and it's pretty sad. You know, it didn't work out. He tried a lot. It just wasn't meant to be for him. They have also signed Luis Diaz, who again was an unbelievable player for Liverpool. Bayern Munich are going to really love watching him. And of course, they've also sold Joao Quansah to Leverkusen as well. Now, Ekitike looked absolutely unbelievable against Crystal Palace. I'm sure, like Gyökeres, he's quite easily going to get 15 goals this season, and he's going to have a really good season. They've also signed Wirtz, who I've loved watching at Bayern Leverkusen. Honestly, I think he's such an exciting player to watch as well for Germany. And again, he's going to be so exciting to watch in this Liverpool team. I think Liverpool are going to win the league anyway, but they're going to be even more determined now because of the loss of Jota. So Liverpool are going to be back-to-back champions. So those are my Premier League predictions for this season, the final ones anyway. If you look on the screen now, we can see the first early predictions, and my final ones here. And, you know, there's been a few changes. If we look at the bottom three, first of all, we had Burnley, Leeds and West Ham, and now we've gone for Burnley, Leeds and Brentford. So West Ham have been pushed out and are safe now. Avoiding relegation, we've got the same team, Sunderland. I do think they're going to stay up. The lower mid-table section, originally we went for Brentford, Wolves, Everton and Bournemouth. There's not too much changes there other than, of course, West Ham swapping with Brentford. In terms of mid-table, originally, as you can see, I went with Fulham, Crystal Palace, who, again, I've gone for in the same order. I went for Man United, Brighton and Forest. I've now gone for Brighton, Forest and Villa. In the Conference League, originally I had Aston Villa. I've now dropped them down to mid-table and I've gone with Newcastle in 7th. In the Europa League, I went for Newcastle and Spurs. I've now gone for Spurs and Man United. I've pushed Man United up quite a bit because of their signings. The UCL places, Chelsea remain in 4th. I've now swapped Arsenal and Man City. I think with Gyökeres signing, I think Arsenal are really going to benefit off that. And of course, Liverpool stay top of the league. But guys, they are just my Premier League predictions. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Who's going to win the league and who's going to get relegated? Let me know down below. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching and taking the time out of your day to watch this video. If you guys did enjoy it, then please do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel as well. As of right now, we are 1 subscriber away from 300. So let's get that and then let's push for 500. But yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you stick around, I promise. You won't regret it.